Hi there, I've been using Kanpeki now for about 3 or 4 weeks, and it's a great brand, very versatile in every way. I've just sectioned this haircut here, and you can see into 6 sections before I start. And what I'd like to talk about is the brand very quickly. And that is, as a brand, what we tried to do here was to get a bunch of scissors. You know, there's 10 in the range of scissors that were suited everybody's needs. And very important for me when we put these scissors together to make sure that they fitted everybody's hand, fitted everybody's needs, including very aesthetically looking good in people's hands. The scissor I'm using today as a left-handed person is one for me that I feel is a scissor that can be used for both left and right-handed. An awful lot of hairdressers that are left-handed go for a left-handed scissor or shearer. However, I've always, as a left-handed hairdresser, I've always used a right-handed scissor even though I'm left-handed. And this particular scissor in the Kanpeki range, for me, is definitely the one to be used. The reason for it I'd like to share with you and show you now. And that is that I'm going to be working on an inverted bob here, taking off the corners off of my haircut and making sure that it's nice and rounded in shape. So you need a fairly pointed blade. In using a pointed blade like I'm going to be using today, it's going to enable me to be able to get a very precise haircut and give an awful lot of precision through what I do. This particular scissor that I'm using now has got a very rounded end, so you can work, as you can see with my point on the skin, I can work very close, giving me a very precise line. Okay, I'm working vertically away from the head. Most importantly, what I want to do is create a round shape in this haircut through the back section here, dropping through into a bob on the front. I work very differently when I cut a round haircut. I don't cut around the section. I take my fingers into the shape of the haircut I want to create, and I then cut around my fingers. Okay? Using this particular scissor, the great thing about it with the rounded ends and the way in which I use the blades, minimum time do you ever cut yourself, simply because of the angle in which you're using, again, rounded fingers to create the roundness of my shape all the way through the crown into the nape of the neck.
Like a thief in the night, stand in front of the masterpiece.
Okay, as you can see now, as I work through the front of the haircut, I'm point cutting. Again with a very rough edge. I have to leave a very rough edge through that front of the haircut. A lot of people like, when they do a haircut like this, like to cut the whole haircut as a wet haircut and then dry it off and do all their personalising afterwards when it's dry. I like to do some personalising through the haircut once it's wet. I'd like to share something with you on point cutting as we're working through this section here, and that is the majority of stylists, as they're point cutting, move their scissors across their haircut as so. If you're working on a long head of hair, or you're working on a haircut where you want your chipping to be precise, the same across the whole section, it's better to keep your scissor in the same place and move the haircut as you go, as opposed to move your scissor.
You'd be impossible to move. It seems to me that's what you are.
I like to get really close, simply because I think you get more precision in the lines of your haircut. Now you can only do that with a really rounded blade, and you can see that the back of this blade is a really rounded blade as well as the front. What that'll give you is a natural curve into working on a client, and when you're working on reverse hand. Equally, when you're working the other way into a client, you can then work a fringe or the front. I like to put the hair when I'm working exactly where the hair would fall. Yeah, I never take it to an abnormal place when I'm working, because the hair will never fall that way when the client does the hair at home themselves. Okay, semi-finished haircut, just have a little look around the haircut. Nice rounded shape all the way through, nice angle on the front. Fairly solid fringe there, you can see. Most exciting part of the haircut for me now, which is getting into the refining of the haircut, which is where you use the majority of techniques that we learn in the industry. Very important that when we start to refine our haircuts when we're point cutting, great using a very sharp pair of scissors or shearers. the refinement of the haircut is the bit that makes the haircut now fit the client. Up until now, I've just done a haircut with a great shape, great outline, but really, really, really important now that we start personalising this haircut using all of our techniques with a double-edged blade to create the haircut and make sure that it fits.